My brothers and sisters, let me ask you something that may hurt a little. Have you noticed that ever since you started praying properly, ever since you lowered your gaze, ever since you left certain sins, ever since you chose Allah over your desires, things started changing. People stopped calling you as much, invitations reduced, conversations became awkward, some friends disappeared completely, and you began to wonder, why am I alone now? I changed for the better, so why does it feel like I lost so much? Listen carefully, you did not lose, you were repositioned. When you change for Allah, Allah begins changing your entire life. But before He elevates you, He separates you. Before He gives you better, He removes what no longer fits who you are becoming. My dear brothers and sisters, elevation is never comfortable. Let us be honest with ourselves. We all love the idea of rising. We love the idea of being closer to Allah, stronger in faith, more disciplined in worship. We imagine light, peace, clarity, but we rarely imagine the process that leads there. And the process is not always gentle. When Allah wants to raise your rank, He first detaches you from what is weighing you down. And sometimes what is weighing you down is not obvious sin. Sometimes it is people. Sometimes it is environments. Sometimes it is habits that felt normal for years. You cannot rise while holding on to what keeps you spiritually heavy. Imagine trying to climb a mountain while carrying stones in your backpack. You may have strong legs, you may have determination, but the weight will exhaust you. You will keep slipping. You will keep wondering why it feels so hard. Those stones represent certain relationships, conversations, and gatherings that once felt harmless but slowly chipped away at your heart. You used to bond over gossip. It felt like connection. It felt like belonging. But every time you laughed at someone else's flaws, something inside your own soul hardened. You used to laugh over sin, maybe music that pulled your heart away, maybe jokes that crossed lines, maybe habits that normalized disobedience. It felt fun. It felt youthful. It felt like you were living. You used to connect through dunya, through status, attention, trends, approval. The group chat was active, the outings were frequent, the energy was constant. Then something changed. Your heart shifted. You started praying with focus. You started feeling guilty for what once felt casual. You started choosing silence over gossip. You started saying no to certain invitations. And suddenly, the atmosphere changed. Conversations became shorter. Invitations became fewer. The energy felt different. And you began asking yourself, what happened? Why does it feel like I'm being left out? My dear brothers and sisters, understand this clearly. When your heart moves toward Allah, not everyone will move with you. Sometimes your growth becomes uncomfortable for others, not because you preach, not because you judge, but because your presence reminds them of something they are not ready to confront. You did not reject them. You rejected what no longer aligned with your new direction. It feels like rejection, but it is actually protection. Allah, in His mercy, sometimes removes people before they become obstacles. He separates you from certain circles before they pull you back into patterns you are trying to escape. You think you are losing company. In reality, you are losing distraction. You think you are losing friendship. In reality, you are losing dependency. You think you are being isolated. In reality, you are being insulated. There is a difference. When Allah elevates someone, He purifies their environment. He changes their surroundings. He restructures their space because environment shapes consistency. If you are trying to protect your salah, but you remain surrounded by those who mock prayer, your struggle will be constant. If you are trying to guard your modesty, but your circle normalizes exposure and attention, your resistance will weaken. If you are trying to leave a sin, but your friends still celebrate it, you will constantly be tempted. So Allah, out of mercy, creates distance. Not because you are better than them, but because you are becoming different. And difference requires separation. Let me tell you something important. Not everyone who walks with you at one stage is meant to walk with you forever. Some people are seasonal. They were part of who you were, not who you are becoming. And that is not cruelty. That is reality. Look at your own life. The version of you from 5 years ago, could that version survive your current spiritual goals? Probably not. Growth changes compatibility. And here is the part that hurts. You may miss them. You may miss the laughter. You may miss the familiarity. You may miss being understood without explanation. But ask yourself honestly, were you growing there or were you just comfortable? Comfort is not always a sign of health. Sometimes it is a sign of stagnation. Allah loves you too much to let you stay stagnant. Elevation requires pruning. When a gardener wants a tree to grow stronger, he cuts branches. From the outside, it looks damaging. It looks like loss. But that cutting allows the tree to grow taller, healthier, more fruitful. Allah is the most wise. When He prunes your life, it is not random. It is intentional. He removes what blocks your sunlight. He removes what competes with your focus. He removes what quietly drains your Iman. And yes, it may feel lonely at first. But loneliness during elevation is better than popularity during destruction. Do not rush back to old circles just because silence feels uncomfortable. Do not shrink your standards just to feel included again. If Allah separated you, trust that He is preparing you. Because when He elevates you, He does not elevate you halfway. He changes your mindset. He changes your habits. He changes your circle. He changes your trajectory. And one day you will look back at this moment of separation and realize that was not loss. That was the beginning of my rise. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the hardest truths to accept in life is this. Not everyone who started with you is meant to finish with you. When you change for Allah, your direction changes. And when your direction changes, your destination changes. And when your destination changes, your companions must also change. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. If you are walking toward the masjid and someone else is walking toward a nightclub, how long can you realistically walk side by side? At some point, the road splits. And the pain is not in the split itself. The pain is in realizing that the split was inevitable. When your heart awakens, your priorities shift. What once excited you now feels empty. What once entertained you now feels draining. What once felt normal now feels heavy. You start protecting your time. You start guarding your tongue. You start thinking before you speak. You start questioning what pleases Allah. And suddenly the conversations that once flowed easily now feel forced. Before, you could sit for hours discussing people. Now your heart feels uncomfortable. Before, you could joke about things that crossed boundaries. Now your conscience feels alert. Before, you could waste nights scrolling and laughing. Now you feel the weight of Fajr approaching. You did not become strange. You became aware. But awareness creates distance. And here is the reality many people avoid saying: growth exposes incompatibility. Some relationships were built on shared weaknesses, not shared purpose. You bonded over distraction. You bonded over rebellion. You bonded over mutual indulgence. But when one person decides to mature spiritually, the foundation of that bond begins to shake, and not everyone is ready to rebuild. Some people prefer the old version of you because it made them comfortable. The old you did not challenge them. The old you did not remind them of accountability. The old you blended in, the new you stands out. Even if you never say a word, your discipline speaks, your boundaries speak, your consistency speaks. And that silent transformation can make others uncomfortable. So they withdraw, or they criticize, or they say, "You've changed." And you reply silently, "Yes, I have." Do not feel guilty for growth. If someone says you're not fun anymore, ask yourself, was fun defined by disobedience? If someone says you think you're better now, ask yourself, or am I simply trying to be better for Allah? There is a difference. My dear brothers and sisters, not everyone can travel your new path because not everyone shares your new vision. And vision determines direction. If your goal is Jannah, your steps must align with that goal. Your environment must support that goal. Your companionship must reflect that goal. The Prophet ﷺ taught us that a person is upon the religion of his close friend. This is not a small statement. It means influence is powerful. It shapes your decisions, your mindset, your habits. So when Allah removes certain people from your life as your faith strengthens, it is not random. It is recalibration. You are being redirected toward people who align with who you are, becoming not who you used to be. But this recalibration period feels lonely because before Allah replaces your circle, He reduces it. And that reduction feels like emptiness. But understand this clearly. Reduction is not rejection. It is refinement. When you filter impurities from water, the volume decreases, but the quality improves. When Allah filters your relationships, the number may shrink, but the sincerity increases. Do not cling to old bonds out of fear. Fear of loneliness makes people return to environments that damage them. Fear of isolation makes people tolerate disrespect. Fear of starting over makes people shrink their standards. You are not meant to shrink. You are meant to rise. And rising means walking roads others may not choose. Some people are companions for comfort. Some are companions for growth. Rarely are they the same. So if you find yourself walking a quieter road now, less noise, fewer distractions, fewer invitations, do not panic. This is the cost of clarity. This is the price of alignment. This is the journey of someone who decided that pleasing Allah is more important than pleasing people. And let me tell you something powerful. When your path aligns with Allah, even if you walk alone for a while, you are never truly alone, because the one who guided you to this path is walking it with you. And when the time is right, He will place the right people beside you. People who remind you of salah, not sin. People who encourage growth, not stagnation. People who respect your boundaries, not test them. But until then, stay firm. Not everyone can travel your new path. And that is not your failure. It is your elevation. My dear brothers and sisters, when the noise dies down and the messages stop coming, when the invitations reduce and your evenings become quieter than they used to be, the first word that enters your mind is lonely. But I want you to challenge that word. Is it loneliness or is it training? Because there is a difference between being abandoned and being prepared. When Allah wants to build something strong, He does not build it in a crowded room. He builds it in stillness. He builds it in silence. He builds it in private. Look at how muscles grow. They grow through resistance. They grow when they are torn and rebuilt. Look at how diamonds are formed. They are formed under pressure hidden deep beneath the surface. And look at the stories of the righteous. Before public strength came, private struggle. Before influence came, isolation. Before impact came, training. You say, why did my circle shrink? Perhaps because Allah wants your dependence to shrink. You say, why do I feel alone? Perhaps because Allah wants you to learn how to stand without leaning on people. There is a dangerous attachment we develop without realizing it, emotional dependence on constant validation. We feel secure when messages are frequent, when invitations are regular, when our presence is desired. But what happens when that disappears? Your heart becomes exposed. And exposure reveals where your true reliance was placed. If your peace collapses the moment people withdraw, then your peace was built on people. If your confidence disappears the moment attention fades, then your confidence was built on attention. Allah sometimes empties your surroundings to show you what was filling your heart. And that realization is not meant to break you, it is meant to mature you. Loneliness, when embraced correctly, becomes discipline. When there is less noise, you hear your thoughts clearly. When there are fewer distractions, you recognize your weaknesses honestly. When there are no crowds applauding you, you learn to act purely for Allah. This is a training season. Training for what? Training for sincerity. Because sincerity cannot grow in constant performance. It grows in hidden consistency. When no one sees you wake up for tahajjud, when no one praises you for resisting a temptation, when no one applauds your quiet discipline and you still continue, that is strength. That is tawakkul. That is maturity. My dear brothers and sisters, many people fear being alone because they confuse silence with insignificance. But silence is not insignificance. Silence is construction. Allah isolates certain hearts so He can speak to them without interruption. When your social life becomes quieter, your spiritual life has room to expand. You finally have time to reflect, time to read Quran without rushing, time to evaluate your habits, time to rebuild your intentions. You are not losing connection. You are gaining clarity. And here is something important. When you stand alone with Allah long enough, your confidence changes. You stop needing approval to feel secure. You stop chasing invitations to feel valued. You stop adjusting your standards to avoid rejection because your anchor shifts. Instead of asking, who is with me? You start asking, is Allah pleased with me? And that question simplifies everything. Loneliness also reveals character. When you are alone, there is no social pressure guiding your behavior. No one is watching. No one is judging. No one is reminding. What you choose in that space defines who you are becoming. Do you return to old habits to escape discomfort? Do you reopen doors that Allah closed? Or do you sit with the discomfort and grow through it? Growth always feels awkward at first. Imagine a bird leaving its nest. The nest was safe, it was warm, it was familiar, but if it refuses to leave because it fears the sky, it will never learn to fly. Sometimes Allah removes the nest so you are forced to discover your wings. You think you are falling, but you are actually learning how to soar. This period of isolation teaches emotional independence. It teaches spiritual resilience. It teaches you how to self-regulate without constant reassurance. And when you master that, when your stability no longer depends on who texts you, who invites you, who praises you, you become powerful. Not arrogant, not cold, stable. And stability is rare. Most people are emotionally reactive. Their mood changes based on attention. Their confidence changes based on feedback. Their decisions change based on approval. But when you survive a season of loneliness with patience, you become internally anchored. And here is the beautiful part. When Allah eventually brings new people into your life, and you will not cling to them out of fear. You will choose them out of alignment. You will not tolerate disrespect just to avoid being alone. You will not compromise your values to maintain company, because you already learned how to stand by yourself. So if you are in a quiet season right now, do not rush to escape it. Do not fill the silence with noise just to avoid feeling uncomfortable. Sit in it. Reflect in it, strengthen in it. This is not abandonment. This is preparation. Allah is training you in private before placing you in positions you are not yet ready to see. And when that moment comes, you will realize something powerful. The loneliness you once feared was the foundation of your strength. My dear brothers and sisters, let us not pretend change hurts. Choosing Allah over desire is not a soft transition. It is not always peaceful in the beginning. It can feel like loss. It can feel like withdrawal. It can feel like something inside you is being torn apart. And in a way, it is. When you leave sin, you are not just leaving an action. You are leaving a version of yourself. You are leaving habits that once comforted you. You are leaving routines that filled your time. You are leaving identities that once defined you. And that separation creates pain. You miss certain conversations. You miss certain people. You miss certain environments, even if you know they were not good for you. This is the reality of the human heart. It becomes attached even to what harms it. But listen carefully. The pain you feel is not proof that you made the wrong choice. It is proof that you are detoxing. When someone removes poison from their body, the process is uncomfortable. There are symptoms, there is weakness, there is restlessness. But no one says, put the poison back so I can feel comfortable again. Yet spiritually, we sometimes think that way. We feel the discomfort of separation from sin and we wonder, was I happier before? No, you were distracted before. There is a difference between happiness and distraction. Distraction numbs pain, purification exposes it. When Allah begins cleansing your heart, He does not simply remove sin, He removes attachment to sin, and that attachment is what hurts. You are not just fighting behavior, you are fighting memory, you are fighting familiarity, you are fighting comfort zones built over years, and that fight is heavy. But purification has always required struggle. Gold is not purified in cold air, it is purified in fire. The fire does not destroy the gold, it removes its impurities. Likewise, the discomfort you feel, the loneliness, the missing, the quiet tears is not there to destroy you. It is there to refine you. Every time you resist going back to what Allah saved you from, your heart strengthens. Every time you feel tempted to reopen a door and you choose to keep it closed, your soul becomes cleaner. Every time you sit alone instead of returning to toxic comfort, your rank rises. And here is something important to understand. Pain is not always punishment. We assume that if something hurts, Allah must be displeased with us. But sometimes the pain is evidence that Allah is shaping you. Think about this. When you go to the gym and your muscles ache, you do not say, this pain means I am failing. You say, this pain means I am growing. Why do we not apply the same logic spiritually? Spiritual growth also creates soreness because you are stretching beyond your old limits. You are disciplining desires that once controlled you. You are confronting weaknesses you once ignored. You are choosing accountability over indulgence. And that process shakes your comfort. My dear brothers and sisters, some of you are grieving friendships. Some of you are grieving relationships. Some of you are grieving the version of yourself that felt carefree. Grief does not mean you regret obedience. It means you are human. The companions of the Prophet ﷺ felt pain when they migrated. They left homes, families, familiarity. Obedience cost them comfort. But that cost was purification. Sometimes Allah removes something you loved, not because it was entirely evil, but because it was slowing your spiritual momentum. Not everything removed was toxic. Some things were simply limiting. And when Allah wants more for you, He will not allow you to stay limited. So He purifies through discomfort. And here is the beautiful secret hidden in this process. The pain you feel now is temporary, but the clarity that comes after purification is permanent. One day, what once tempted you will no longer attract you. One day, what once felt impossible to leave will feel distant and irrelevant. One day, you will look back at the version of yourself that struggled and say, I cannot believe I was that attached. And you will smile because you will see that the pain was not cruelty, it was mercy. Allah was not stripping you of joy. He was stripping you of dependence on what could not sustain you. He was preparing your heart to experience a higher form of peace, a peace not tied to people, not tied to attention, not tied to sin, a peace tied to Him. And that peace cannot exist in a cluttered heart. So the clutter must be cleared, the attachments must be loosened, the false sources of comfort must be exposed. And yes, it stings, but purification always does. Do not rush the process. Do not numb the pain with distractions. Do not interpret discomfort as failure. Instead say, Ya Allah, if this pain is cleaning my heart, let it continue, but grant me strength. Because when the purification completes, what remains is stronger, lighter, and closer to Allah than you have ever been. And that version of you, the purified version, will thank you for enduring this stage. The pain you feel is not the end, it is the washing. And what comes out on the other side is a heart that beats differently. A heart that no longer breaks over what Allah removed. A heart that trusts that every tear shed for His sake was worth it. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the biggest fears we have when Allah removes something from our lives is this: what if nothing comes after it? What if I lost those friends and I never find better ones? What if I walked away from that relationship and I remain alone? What if I gave up that habit and life becomes dull? Shaitan whispers this fear into your heart. He makes you believe that obedience leads to emptiness. But Allah does not operate like that. Allah is not unjust. Allah does not take without wisdom. And Allah does not remove something for His sake without preparing something better, either in this dunya or in the akhirah. The problem is not replacement. The problem is timing. We are impatient. When something leaves, we want an immediate substitute. We want comfort instantly restored. We want the loneliness filled tomorrow. We want the silence replaced with noise. But Allah does not replace according to your urgency. He replaces according to your readiness. If He immediately gave you better companionship while you were still emotionally dependent, you would cling again. If He instantly sent righteous people into your life while you still carried old habits, you might damage that new environment. So first, He stabilizes you. He strengthens your independence. He reshapes your standards. He teaches you what you will no longer tolerate. Then, when you are no longer desperate, when you are no longer chasing, He begins sending what aligns with your new level. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah's replacements are different. They are not loud. They are not flashy. They are not chaotic. They are stable. You may lose 10 casual friends and gain one sincere companion who reminds you of Salah. That one person will bring more barakah than the 10 ever did. You may lose attention from many and gain tranquility within yourself. You may lose toxic validation and gain self-respect. Sometimes the replacement is not even a person. Sometimes the replacement is clarity. Sometimes the replacement is discipline. Sometimes the replacement is peace that does not fluctuate with who texts you. And sometimes, listen carefully, the replacement is not in this life at all. When you give something up purely for Allah, even if nothing visible replaces it here, Allah promises reward beyond imagination in the hereafter. Do you really think Allah overlooks sacrifice made for Him? If you leave a sin for His sake, He records it. If you walk away from a relationship that distances you from Him, He sees it. If you endure loneliness rather than return to disobedience, He knows it. And the one who sees in secret rewards in ways you cannot predict. But here is where many people fail. They sabotage the replacement. Allah removes something unhealthy. Instead of waiting, they rush back out of discomfort. They reopen old doors. They text old numbers. They revisit old environments. Why? Because the silence feels unfamiliar, but unfamiliar does not mean unsafe. It means new. If you plant a seed today, you do not dig it up tomorrow to check if it is growing. You water it, you protect it, you wait. Likewise, when Allah removes something and places you in a quiet season, you must trust the process. The replacement is forming, but replacements from Allah require patience and they require trust. Trust that He knows what you actually need, not just what you want. Because sometimes what you want feels good but harms you long term. And sometimes what Allah gives you feels simple but strengthens you long term. My dear brothers and sisters, think about your past. Have there not been moments where something ended and you thought it was the end of your world, only to later realize it was the best thing that could have happened? At the time, you cried. Later, you thanked Allah. Why? Because you saw the wisdom after the fact. So why do you doubt Him now? If Allah removed certain people after you changed for Him, perhaps He is protecting your momentum. If Allah reduced your distractions, perhaps He is increasing your focus. If Allah made your life quieter, perhaps He is preparing you for stability. Replacements from Allah are often upgrades in unseen ways. You lose chaos. You gain calm. You lose excitement. You gain consistency. You lose popularity. You gain integrity. And integrity will always outlast popularity. Do not measure Allah's generosity by how quickly He fills the space. Measure it by how wisely He fills it. And understand this clearly. Anything you give up for Allah is not a loss. It is an investment that compounds, maybe in this life through better companions, maybe through a spouse who respects your growth, maybe through opportunities that align with your faith, or maybe in the hereafter through rewards beyond imagination. But the return is guaranteed. Allah never breaks His promise. So if something was removed after you chose Him, do not panic, do not rush, do not downgrade your standards just to fill a gap. Stay firm. Because when Allah replaces what He removed, you will realize something powerful. What you thought was irreplaceable was only temporary. And what He gives you will feel like it was tailored exactly for who you have become. My dear brothers and sisters, one of the most dangerous illusions of our time is this, that your value is equal to how many people surround you. If your phone is busy, you feel important. If your invitations are frequent, you feel wanted. If your name is mentioned often, you feel relevant. And when that attention decreases, something inside you starts to question your worth. Am I boring now? Did I become too serious? Did I ruin my own life by changing? Let me speak clearly to you. Your worth was never defined by your social circle. It was never defined by how many people laugh at your jokes. It was never defined by how many messages you receive. It was never defined by how often you are included. If that were true, then the prophets would have been considered failures in their early missions. Many of them stood almost alone. Truth has never been measured by popularity. But we live in a world where numbers are glorified. Followers, views, likes, group chats, social proof. We subconsciously equate visibility with value. So when Allah reduces your visibility, your ego feels threatened. But maybe Allah is protecting you from building your identity on fragile foundations. Because if your confidence depends on how many people approve of you, then your confidence will collapse the moment approval fades. And approval always fades. People are unstable. Their moods change. Their interests change. Their loyalties change. If you anchor your worth to people, you anchor yourself to instability. But if you anchor your worth to Allah, you anchor yourself to permanence. Ask yourself honestly, why does being alone bother you so much? Is it because you genuinely need support, Or is it because you fear being unseen? There is a difference. Needing support is human. Needing constant validation is insecurity. When Allah begins elevating you, He often dismantles the places where you were unconsciously seeking validation. Maybe you liked being the funny one. Maybe you liked being admired. Maybe you liked being the center of attention. And there is nothing inherently wrong with enjoying company. But when your sense of identity becomes dependent on it, it becomes dangerous. Because now you will compromise your values just to maintain that identity. You will laugh at things you should not laugh at. You will tolerate disrespect just to stay included. You will dilute your principles to remain accepted. And slowly, without realizing it, you trade your integrity for belonging. Allah sometimes reduces your circle to protect your integrity. He removes the applause so you can rediscover your intention. He removes the crowd so you can hear your conscience. He removes the noise so you can rebuild your self-worth on something deeper. My dear brothers and sisters, your value does not increase because 10 people sit around you. And it does not decrease because you sit alone. Your value comes from your relationship with your Creator. If Allah knows your name, if Allah sees your struggle, if Allah hears your dua at night, then you are not insignificant. You are honored. But we forget this because we are conditioned to seek horizontal validation from people instead of vertical validation from Allah. Let me ask you something powerful. If you had to choose between being popular but distant from Allah or being unknown but close to Him, which one truly benefits you? The answer is obvious. But emotionally, we struggle to accept it because being known feels safe. Being unseen feels vulnerable. Yet some of the most beloved people to Allah were unknown to society. They were not trending. They were not praised publicly. They were not constantly surrounded, but they were sincere. And sincerity weighs heavier than popularity. When your circle shrinks after you change for Allah, do not interpret it as decline. Interpret it as filtration. Allah is teaching you that you are not who people think you are. You are who He knows you to be. And when that realization settles in your heart, something shifts. You stop performing. You stop over-explaining. You stop shrinking yourself to fit expectations. You become grounded, stable, unafraid of quiet, because you understand something most people do not. Being alone is not the same as being worthless. Sometimes it is a sign that you no longer need constant reassurance to feel secure. And that is growth. Real strength is walking into a room and not needing approval. Real strength is sitting alone and not feeling diminished. Real strength is choosing Allah even when no one is clapping for you. If your social circle reduced after you strengthened your deen, do not panic. You did not become less. You became selective. You became intentional. You became aligned. And alignment always reduces chaos. My dear brothers and sisters, never allow numbers to define you, not followers, not friends, not invitations, because on the day of judgment, you will stand alone anyway. Not with your group chat, not with your social status, not with your popularity. You will stand alone with your deeds. So learn now what you will eventually experience later. Stand comfortably in your own space. Let your worth be rooted in your obedience. Let your confidence come from your connection to Allah. And understand this deeply. If your circle shrank because you chose Allah, then your value did not decrease. It was refined. My dear brothers and sisters, when you are in the middle of change, it feels like something has ended. It feels like you lost your old life. It feels like doors have closed. It feels like the version of you that once felt secure no longer exists. And because you are standing in unfamiliar territory, your mind whispers, what if this is it? What if this loneliness is permanent? What if I ruined everything by changing? But listen carefully. This is not the end of your story. This is the beginning of your real one. The version of you that lived for comfort, attention, distraction, that chapter may be closing. But the version of you that lives with purpose, clarity, and direction is only now being written. And beginnings rarely feel glamorous. They feel uncertain. They feel quiet. They